Welcome to Food Friends, a podcast inspiring home cooks to try new dishes in the kitchen by sharing trusted recipes, tips, and friendship. Hi, I'm Sonia.
And I'm Carrie. We met in Los Angeles over 15 years ago as personal chefs and haven't stopped talking about food since. We're so glad you're here. Thanks for being our food friend.
If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with friends. We love hearing from you, so follow us on Instagram or drop us a line at foodfriendspodcast.com.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you and your food friends. Happy cooking and eating. Hi, Sonia.
Hi, Carrie.
This time of year is really nostalgic for me because I grew up in a really small town and football was really big in the town that I grew up in. So there were football games and every Friday night. And after the football game, someone would always host a tailgate at their house. And I know the definition of tailgate kind of veers in different directions. There are tailgates that are like in parking lots before games. We would have them at someone's house after the game. And have you ever done that?
Carrie, have never ever been to any tailgate of
What?
any kind. I was an artsy-fartsy person in high school. I barely went to the football games. I went to like a couple, but we didn't really tailgate. It wasn't really my tradition, but potlucks are my tradition. Potlucks are a big thing in my life and continue to be. And so I love that we can come at this from kind of two different angles. Your nostalgic Midwestern background, which I think is actually perfect for potlucks too. I think the kinds of things you make for tailgates extend beyond football season.
Absolutely. And for any gatherings at this time of year. And, you know, it's funny when you just said I didn't go to football games in high school. This was from when I was in grade school. My mom was a teacher at my high school. My dad was really involved in the school. And I just remember big tables full of food and crock pots and casseroles and all kinds of things. So I'm excited to start and jump in with a dish that I've had my eye on for a while, and they're wildly popular on the internet: ham and cheese sliders. What you do is you take a pack of Hawaiian rolls. You can either take the regular size rolls or you can take the sliders. You cut them up and you separate the tops from the bottoms. And then you can either add the bottom part of the bun to the casserole dish, or if you were going to have a tailgate like out on a parking lot and be using a grill, you could actually do this in tinfoil as well. So you're basically building a rectangle of sandwiches. Right,
you slice through the entire package. I've seen this on like TikTok and stuff. It's like you take that whole package of rolls and you're saying like you slice through all at once. So it's almost like one giant roll, but then they easily break off into pieces because they're pull apart.
They're pull apart, but the recipe actually encourages you to build them into each little bun, and then you just nestle them to each other. I've seen it done both ways, but the recipe that I looked at, the idea is that when you go to pull them apart, they're already pulled apart for you. So you've got your bottom buns in a rectangle, and you add slices of ham, and then you add some Swiss cheese, and then you add more slices of ham, and then you add the top buns. So then it just looks like top buns. And then you take melted butter and you mix it with Dijon mustard, dried onion powder, Worcestershire, and poppy seeds. And you pour that all over these buns.
Oh.
And you might need like a pastry brush to kind of distribute all of the onion and the poppy seeds on top. And then you bake that in the oven, or if you're making it in tin foil, you cover it and then you can like throw it on your grill to get that all heated up. And then you can serve it as is in the casserole. You can take all those little sliders and you can stack them onto a tray and hand them out to people or put them on a buffet table.
I think this idea of the melted butter with the mustard and the poppy seeds is what makes it different from the thing I was talking about that got me sidetracked, which is when you make that giant sandwich and then you can kind of slice it up once it's heated through. But what you're talking about is almost like a mini casserole, but that have individual portioned pieces, which I love for a potluck. And if you didn't want to do ham and cheese, I'm sure you could do any other combination, turkey and cheese. You could make it just roast beef. You could make it just cheese. You could do sauteed greens and cheese, probably would be really good if you want a vegetarian version. I feel like
Yeah.
it's more the concept than the actual components.
Yeah, I agree. And, as I've mentioned several times on our podcast, my dad makes a country ham. So for me, I would never buy deli ham. So I would absolutely do turkey instead.
It sounds really good. So I also have a kind of nostalgic, it's a really different from the other things I want to share today, but we've never talked about it before. And it's one of those classic potluck or entertaining dishes that's the easy thing in the world, which is Hasselback salami. So there's this blogger who went kind of viral years ago for her particular version of it because she uses this traditional kosher beef salami, which is what I have always used. And they come in sort of like thicker, larger rolls. You can also do this with thinner salami though. So you Hasselback it like you would a potato, which means you just cut it into thin slices, but not all the way through. So it sort of looks like a fan. The sausage stays in place and it's cut maybe like 2/3 of the way down. And what that's going to do is allow each slice to get kind of browned and a little crisped, which is such a fun texture. But the key to Hasselback salami is to have some kind of saucy element that you brush over it. Otherwise, it would just be dry salami, and nobody wants that. So this particular recipe combines apricot jam, whole grain mustard or deli mustard, a little brandy, and a little ketchup.
Ooh,
And I think
how
that makes
fun.
it really fun. Yeah, because I think I've seen a lot where it's just jam, but to add a little mustard and jam to me makes so much more sense because I don't want something too sweet.
Yeah.
And then you brush it over your sliced salami and you stick it in the oven and you let it get all crisp and hot. And if you were taking this on the go, I would just heat it up and cover it and take it with you. It doesn't have to be piping hot when you serve it. It's more about that glazed texture than it is about the temperature. It's a fun potluck game day. Even if you are just like having people over for a game, you're not necessarily tailgating, or whether you're hosting or taking it somewhere, it just is such an easy classic little snack.
Sonia, I have one question. I wonder
Yeah.
if you have a tip. I have always wanted to make Hasselback and I've never done it, but I've seen these tips where you take maybe a wooden spoon and you lay it alongside of the potato that you're cutting, or in this case, obviously the sausage, and you slice until your knife
Until you
hits
hit.
that spoon. Is that how you do it?
With salami, I find it much easier because it doesn't tend to be rolling around as much as a potato. But with a potato, I do what you're saying. But what I do is I take two flat chopsticks. I put them
Oh, yeah.
on either side. So
To hold it
above,
in
yeah.
place.
And then I slice and let it hit that way. And a wooden spoon is super helpful because it's a little thicker.
That's true. Okay, great. Well, thanks for that tip. This is something I want to try. So, Sonia, the next dish that I have is also more of an appetizer idea, and it is a classic. I feel like I've seen it at every tailgate that I've ever gone to, which is a Rotel sausage dip in a crock pot.
Wait,
And
Carrie, is Rotel the canned chilies? Is that what you mean?
that's what I mean. A can of tomatoes and chilies. You can make a vegetarian version if you want. You just mix that with Velveeta cubes.
Oh,
But
yeah.
in this case, and in many of the cases that I experienced, it was either ground sausage. A lot of times my family uses ground sausage. You could also use a ground beef. The recipe that I'm sharing is one that also includes a Spanish chorizo. But if you wanted to go in more
Ooh.
of like a Mexican Tex-Mex version, you could get a Mexican chorizo that's crumbled up and cook that. And then basically, you're just throwing everything into your crock pot. You're taking the Rotel, you're adding cubes of Velveeta cheese and the crumbled up sausage, and you put it in your crock pot until it all melts. And then my hot tip is don't get chips that are too crumbly. I think you really want a thicker chip here. I've seen it also served with a baguette, sliced baguette. You want that all that cheesy, meaty goodness on a really thick chip or on a piece of bread.
I am very into the chip idea. I feel like you just want that salty, crunchy bite.
Yes.
And I think at some point I talked about queso.
Your friend,
My
yes.
friend Alan, who always makes queso for every party with Velveeta and with Rotel, and it has to have both. There's something about the combination that is so iconic. And I really think this is a great reminder that some things can be easy. Sometimes a
Yes.
potluck doesn't have to be about showing off your most complicated recipe or your fanciest thing. It can be something simple in a crock pot that will always be a crowd pleaser.
Absolutely. I mean, this is always the first thing to go. Like
Absolutely.
it's delicious and people want to eat it.
That's what matters.
That's what matters.
So, my next one is going to go in a slightly different direction, although I would still classify it as comfort food. But I'm bringing some freshness into the potluck, which is a wedge salad. And recently
You
on
love a wedge
I
salad.
love a wedge
You
salad.
just love a wedge salad. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it was like about a month ago or so, we posted my wedge salad recipe. I make wedge salads a little bit differently than the tradition. I would say the tradition is you get your wedge, you crumble bacon and blue
Wait,
cheese.
iceberg. Wedge is
Sorry,
an iceberg.
it's an iceberg lettuce.
Yes.
What I love is iceberg lettuce.
I don't think you can make wedge with anything besides
You
iceberg.
have to use iceberg. I
Absolutely.
don't think little gem is the same. I don't
No.
think romaine is a substitute. I think it has to be iceberg. It's not just the texture, it's the flavor, but also that very sweet presentation. The way it holds a wedge is so
Yeah.
beautiful. So typically, right, it's bacon, blue cheese, sometimes like some diced tomato, and then usually blue cheese dressing, right? And I have always done it differently because to me, the fun of the wedge is really just the iceberg lettuce. And then I feel like the world's your oyster. So my go-to wedge salad is actually I make a homemade ranch dressing and I make it very dill forward, not surprising,
Do
and
you
but still
have what do you have a buttermilk in your ranch? Is there a
I
little bit of
don't.
buttermilk?
No,
No.
I
What?
do it because buttermilk is just like one more thing to buy, and I
Yeah.
don't always want to have to go to the store to make something. My ranch is a little bit of mayonnaise, sour cream or Greek yogurt, depending what you have, lemon juice. I use a little less lemon juice if I'm doing Greek yogurt, and that's already kind of a buttermilk vibe because
Yeah, that's the same idea.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and then I add a lot of fresh dill or dry dill. Dry dill makes it taste more like restaurant ranch, and fresh dill makes it taste more like fancy restaurant
Chefy.
ranch.
Yes,
Yes.
totally.
So
Yes.
I actually use both. I like to grate in a clove of garlic, but you could use garlic powder, onion powder, salt, and pepper. It's actually not complicated. That's my go to ranch. I think it works really well for this. And then I like to use tomatoes. I like to use cherry tomatoes. I like to do a little bit of toasted chopped pecan in place of bacon. I don't eat bacon. I've tried other nuts and you can use other nuts. There's something about this flavor of a pecan in particular when it's toasted. It has a kind of meaty, almost mushroomy vibe, and
Yeah.
it really works in a wedge. And then I add pickled red onion or regular red onion, and that's it. But the thing I like about it for a potluck is a couple things. You could make all your wedges, slice all your ingredients, have it all ready to go, and even assembled on a platter, and keep the dressing separate. And you could even do that the night before, and it will hold. And if you have it in an airtight container, I've kept wedges in my fridge for several days. They might turn a little pink if they're not super fresh, but if you cover it well, it should last a while. So I love the ease of that. Oh, also you could add avocado. I just want to add that. Avocado would be a
Right.
great heartier addition. And then your dressing you can make a week ahead of time. It lasts for a week in the fridge
Well, and
minimum.
it tastes better when you've put all those herbs into it. It will absolutely start to develop more flavor over time.
I love it for hosting or for potlucks because you could have this big platter of it ready to go. You take it with you, and then you want to serve it with that ranch drizzled over. So everyone could either drizzle their own, which is probably what I would do at a buffet table. And if I was doing a dinner party, I would drizzle and then have extra ranch on the side for people to add to their plates.
I mean, what an exciting platter, though, to see all these wedge salads. We did this a couple of years ago. We had a dinner party for New Year's, and we built wedge salads into a 9 by 13 casserole and put them on the table. And it was such a fun addition to the table, and everyone gets excited because it's a salad, but you get your own individual one,
Which is perfect for potlucks.
which is perfect for potluck. So, Sonia, my next dish is also a salad. It's a purple potato salad. This recipe comes from Duff Goldman from the Food Network, and it really reminded me of you because every time I think of potato salad, I think of you. But when I'm thinking about a tailgate or a potluck, I want to bring a dish that feels fun and exciting and that will catch people's eye. And so the idea of seeking out purple potatoes, which are definitely available at my farmers market, but also I see them at the grocery store too. You have a lot of purple potatoes in Oregon, right?
Yeah, my potato guy grows purple potatoes. I do feel like they're more common than they used to be even at the grocery store.
Yeah. So, what I love about this recipe, there's a couple of great ideas in it, and then it's also pretty standard. So, you cook your potatoes with a head of garlic. You cut the head in half and you
Oh,
cook them with garlic. And then, right before the potatoes are done, like a minute before, you add your sliced red onion. I like this tip because I find red onion can be kind of too oniony. And
yes.
I feel like you've offered tips on how to take a little bit of that bite out of your red onion.
You can
Don't you
also soak it in, yeah, if you
soak it in
soak it
cold
in ice
water?
water, yeah, it will make it mellow. But yes, I
Yeah.
think that's really smart.
So you drain that and you discard the garlic. So you've got your purple potatoes and your red onion. And then it's a pretty standard cider vinegar, mayonnaise, sugar, sour cream. But there's a little bit of horseradish in
Oh,
this dressing.
fun.
So you dress with horseradish and then celery, half sours, or sweet pickles. And I've recently learned about half sours thanks to you. And then you hit it at the end with some fresh dill and some fresh parsley. But just this bowl of purple potato salad, it to me is just so inviting.
Yeah, I think a good potato salad is always, again, a crowd pleaser. So another thing that I was thinking about is more substantial dishes that you could bring to a potluck because sometimes when you see that Google spreadsheet for a potluck, like a lot of the times the salads go first or the chips and dip go first. And I think you and I both have this strategy of we wait for other people to fill it out and
Yes.
then we try to see what's missing. I think sometimes main dishes are missing from potluck spreads, or you might even want to help the host out if they've offered to do some mains. I also think about vegetarian mains because I think sometimes vegetarians on big spreads can get lost. So I was thinking about my love of pot pies, and I haven't made a pot pie in a while. And now that I've been like thinking about what would be good for a potluck, this is the thing I would take to my next potluck, which is a vegetable pot pie. And the recipe comes from Heidi Swanson of 101 Cookbooks, who just makes great vegetarian recipes.
She makes great vegetarian recipes. I love this idea because it's perfect for this time of year.
Her recipe is so traditional. It's more or less like chicken pot pie without the chicken,
Oh wow.
except for the one thing that she includes instead of chicken are potatoes, regular potatoes. And that is so smart to me. So it's like carrots, potatoes, celery, onion, peas, and you're adding herbs like thyme. I think there's another herb in there. I'm sure you could add whatever you enjoy in your pot pie. And you're making a cream sauce with heavy cream and a little butter and a little flour. You make that roux and then you add your cream and you have all these cooked veggies and then you're filling your pie crust. And you can definitely make a homemade pie crust top for this. And that would be lovely. And you could actually make this whole thing ahead of time, freeze it, and then bake it off the day you want to serve it. I always think about with potlucks, what could I get ahead of? So you could have your pie dough made ahead of time. You could have the whole pot pie made ahead of time. And with a pot pie, it's usually just putting a crust on the top. You're not always doing a bottom crust.
It's not a double crust.
I am really into pot pies with just the top crust, particularly if I don't want to make crust at all, in which case I buy puff pastry. So you could make this vegetable pot pie mixture and get an all butter puff pastry. And you could even put this into a casserole dish. It doesn't even have to be in a pie pan. I would do this in a big cast iron pan. I think that would be a beautiful presentation and just have that pre-made puff pastry crust on top. And it's very inviting for people to dig into and just is so cozy in the fall. And it's just a classic dish. I think sometimes for these kinds of gatherings, you want classic flavors.
I completely agree with you. I think that your tip about making all of this ahead of time and freezing it is brilliant because I love the idea of a savory pie. And I have been with my sweet pies because you and I have talked. We talked to Nicole Rucker about pie crust, and we've talked to Danielle Bell about pie crust. Having your pie crust refrigerated or frozen actually makes it so much more flaky. Just remember that a Pyrex cannot go straight from the freezer into the oven. It will break. And
Yeah,
so you want to make sure that you either are using metal or a ceramic that you know can go straight from the freezer to your oven, to a hot oven.
that's a good point.
Sonia, for me, no tailgate is complete without pigs in a blanket. But
For sure. I who doesn't like a pig in a blanket?
I found this recipe from the Food Network. It's for pull apart dogs in a blanket ring. And it reminds me of that tarte de soleil that you've made when we've catered together and that you've also talked about on our podcast before. And so what this recipe does is it takes a couple of items like crescent rolls, which my mom used for a lot of different dishes. You stack them on top of each other, you roll them out, and then you add some egg, poppy seed, white sesame, cheese, like American cheese slices. You add more dough, and then you take a bowl and you kind of cut, you basically make like a starburst, just like you do with your tarte de soleil. Then you take a full size hot dog and you lay it on each of those little starburst pieces and you wrap them up. And then you add a little bit more egg wash and you bake that in the oven. And then when it comes out, it has that little space right in the middle where you can put a bowl of mustard or ketchup, whatever you want to do. And so people just kind of come by and they basically get a giant pig in a blanket.
I love those pull apart breads of any kind. The tarte de soleil, we'll link that again too, just so people can look,
Please.
because you have to see the picture if you've never seen it. It's basically twists of puff pastry around a center. And this is easier to see, and that's why the links will be important. And I love the idea of pull apart pigs in a blanket because it just makes something that's so classic and expected a little more fun.
When I was reading this recipe, I was having a hard time understanding the instructions. There is a fantastic video that really helped me understand. So, if you sort of glazed over when you were listening to me talk about cutting the croissant dough into a starburst shape, there's a great video that will show you exactly how to do it.
I love you bringing all these Midwestern classics to the conversation. So I'm also going to take us in a different direction again with a bunch more produce. This is a dish I've taken to fall gatherings a number of times. I think it straddles the line between healthy-ish and comfort food, and it's a Swiss chard and sweet potato gratin. It comes from Smitten Kitchen. It's one of her older recipes. I've been making it for years. It's also good PS for Thanksgiving. And it's like any gratin where you cut your potato, in this case, sweet potato, into rounds and you make a simple bechamel sauce, which is like a cream sauce. You also saute some greens, Swiss chard in this case. I think you could use kale easily or collard greens. And then you're sort of assembling layers of the potato and layers of the green with this cream sauce. So I feel like it hits all these really fall notes, which is something creamy, something rich, but the sweet potato and the greens really counteract that richness and they also balance each other out. If it was just sweet potato, I feel like it would be a little cloying and a little too heavy. And if it was just greens, it'd just be more like cream spinach or something. And this is like a happy marriage of those two ideas.
Having not had this dish or seeing it, I'm just thinking about the gorgeous orange of those sweet potatoes with that vibrant green. Again, it's one of those dishes that when you put it on the table, it's going to call to people. And I love how different the two ideas that we're bringing to this table because mine are so heavy and meat specific. And I love these last two, the vegetable pot pie and this really beautiful vegetarian gratin, because there's always vegetarians and also people that just like to eat vegetables.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any party is complete without dessert. And I do think often a potluck or tailgate requires you to bring a sweet treat. So do you have anything that's your go-to this fall?
Well, there's a recipe that I have my eye on. I haven't made it yet, but it is browned butter pecan pie bars from Sally's Baking Addiction. What I love about a bar is that it's portable. Again, it's like you can bring it in a tray, you can bring it in a casserole, you can bring it on a sheet pan, and people can just grab little bites. And these are all really classic fall flavors: brown butter, maple syrup, toasty pecans, brown sugar. She adds a little bit of flaky sea salt for balance. It's actually a very easy recipe to put together. So you brown the butter in the pan. I think that's the hardest thing that you need to do is just pay attention while you're browning your butter. Don't walk away. Don't go fold the laundry. And once your butter is browned, you're just mixing it with sugar, vanilla, salt, and flour. And you press that into a 9 by 13 casserole dish. While that's cooking, you make this topping, you pour it on top. You can make this up to a week in advance, which I really love.
Wow, that's
Like
so
it's
smart.
and it sits at room temperature for a week because
That's
it's like
great.
it's really great. And so if you wanted to make
That's
this,
great for like shipping. If you wanted to send someone a
oh,
treat, I'm
great
always
idea.
thinking about in the holidays in the fall, you often want to send people a care package. This would be
Yeah.
so smart for that.
This would be so smart for that. My entry to Tailgates is Friday nights. Now that I'm a parent, on a Sunday, I could make these and then take them to a Friday night party. It just sits on your counter all week long waiting for you. I mean, For sure, they wouldn't last on my counter all week long, but maybe I would make two in that case. But I mean, what a great idea. So, what's your sweet treat, Sonia?
I recently brought a sweet treat to Potluck and I haven't shared it with you yet. And it really was a big hit. And I plan to make it again. And it's Allison Roman's honey yogurt raspberry pound cake.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think pound cakes are actually, and quick cakes and snacking cakes are great for any kind of potluck because they're easy to make. They can cut up really well. You can cut them up
Yes.
ahead of time and just have all those slices laid out and people can grab them. It's very easy. As opposed to, yeah, a layered cake or a pie or something that's a little fussier to cut and slice. So this is one of those recipes that doesn't require a stand mixer, that doesn't require special equipment, that doesn't require creaming your butter and having it at room temperature. The yogurt is the dairy element, and then you add a little bit of oil so you don't even have to worry about butter. It's a very simple cake, and you bake it in, a loaf pan, something you'd make banana bread in, which I love.
Right.
Well, it's a pound cake. That's what
Yeah.
you bake them in. But the thing is, she has it with raspberries, but I actually had some blackberries from the summer that I froze, and I made this with blackberries, and it worked beautifully. I think raspberries are slightly more flavorful, but I think this cake would work with blueberries, with blackberries, with raspberries, any of those berries. I think it works with both fresh or frozen. I would just say if you're using frozen, add them in frozen. Don't let them thaw first.
Yeah,
Add them
that's a
frozen.
great tip. Yes.
And then what I did is I made a little fruit salad to go with it. So I had some more frozen berries, or you could use fresh berries, that I just sprinkled sugar on and added a squeeze of lemon, and then served that on the side so that each person could take their own little slice of cake and top it with fresh berries. It doesn't need the fresh berries. It was just a fun thing to do,
Yeah.
and it made it feel more festive. But you could also serve it with whipped cream, serve it with ice cream, or serve it with nothing at all. It's good on its own. I just love easy snacking cakes. That's my favorite category of cake. And I think anytime you have a gathering, it's like a no-brainer. And you can make this a couple days in advance. I think it even tastes better the next day.
And you can make a pound cake ahead of time and freeze it and pull it out of your
Oh,
freezer.
yeah. You can for sure bake it
Yeah.
off, freeze it. You can even slice it and freeze it and then let it defrost and bring it with you. You're so right. Pound cakes are one of the most forgiving kinds of cakes to make and serve.
Yeah. Well, Sonia, this makes me really excited to go to a party.
We need all the parties.
We need all the parties.
Well, until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for being our food friend.
If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with friends. We love hearing from you, so follow us on Instagram or drop us a line at foodfriendspodcast.com.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you and your food friends. Happy cooking and eating.